Hey guys, welcome back. So lately I've been making a lot of immigration law videos about different types of fraudulent cases that people are applying for, whether it's out of just stupidity or fear or desperation. You know, sometimes when I hear these stories, I kind of get why they did it, but it's just such a terrible idea. And one of the topics that I want to touch on today is fake marriage cases. And this is a tactic I use to discourage a lot of people who come to me and they say hey, what if I just marry this person? My answer is always, that's a terrible idea. But instead of just telling them they're making a mistake, I try to explain it in a way that might be appealing to them. And so what I'm gonna talk about is how long it actually takes to get a marriage-based green card after you get married. So there's a couple of assumptions I'm gonna make in this video. Number one, you met your spouse less than a year ago, your fake spouse for a fraudulent case, and you wanna get married and then apply for your green card right away. So let's say you file your green card application through your marriage to a US citizen, and let's say you go to your first interview, and your first interview is about a year after you filed the paperwork. So we're in 1 year now, and let's say you guys pass the interview and you get your conditional green card. That's a big if, especially with a Trump presidency where they are really ramping up fraud investigations and fraudulent intent investigations, and Stokes interviews, which are fraud-based immigration unit interviews. But let's say everything goes well and you get your green card after 1 year. Now that green card is most likely gonna be a conditional green card, which means you've been married for less than 2 years on the date that your green card is approved. What that also means is that your green card will expire in 2 years. And before it expires, you need to submit way more evidence from the past 2 years showing that you and your US citizen spouse continue to be in a good faith marriage. Now, if you just got your green card and you said, see you later, and you stopped living with your spouse, or maybe you never lived together, and you stopped generating more evidence, you're gonna have one heck of a time proving that you're in a good faith marriage 2 years later, and you increase the chances of being eventually placed into deportation proceedings. And there might even be a fraud determination or a marriage-based fraud determination, which is like a game over type scenario. So now, we've filed the green card, you got the green card 1 year later, and now 2 years after that, so 3 years into the process, you need to submit more evidence of your good faith marriage. You make this submission, you submit as much evidence as you guys can gather, and that process currently can easily take up to 2 years, but we expect those processing times to increase dramatically to up to 4 years. So right there, 4 years after you apply to remove the conditions on your green card, you and your spouse might get called in for an interview. And if you guys stopped communicating the moment you got your marriage-based green card, your first one, that was years ago. That person may have divorced you to marry their real love by then. You guys certainly are probably not in a good faith marriage anymore. A lot of people who ask me about getting into a fake marriage-based green card situation don't understand how long they actually need to remain in a good faith marriage in a worst case scenario. It can easily be a 6-year ordeal. And I've even heard of situations where the US citizen spouse keeps asking for more and more money. And by the way, this is also a good time for me to mention, when your US citizen spouse is in front of an immigration officer and that officer suspects fraud, they really turn up the pressure. They'll separate you guys and they talk to the US citizen spouse and they say things like, listen, if you're helping this guy get a fraudulent green card, you can go to prison, you can be fined a ridiculous amount of money. Is that really worth it to you? You can avoid all of this right now by signing this piece of paper or at least withdrawing your petition. And I've heard of many situations where that's how they get you. So before you even consider getting into a marriage-based green card situation, I would just like to tell you that it's not worth it. And my advice to everyone is, if you're here unlawfully, just wait until you are actually in a real marriage before you apply for your green card. I would also like to take a moment to address some of the comments that we receive in the comments section of these videos for people who say things like, all of those marriage-based green card cases are fake. In my experience of doing mostly marriage-based green cards for many years, I will tell you that that has not been my experience. I would say 99 out of 100 people who consult with me about doing a marriage-based green card are very much in a good faith marriage, and that 1 out of 100, I tell them that I can't represent them. So maybe that has a bias effect where, people know I'm not gonna represent them if they come to me after getting into a fake marriage. I will occasionally consult with someone who's like, hey, but what if I just marry someone? Can I do that? And oftentimes my answer is yes, you can do that, but make sure it's a good faith marriage, and this is why. And then the topic I discussed in this video about how long it actually takes is one of the main compelling reasons that I think persuades people not to do it. Not everyone, but many people. So I just wanted to touch that. I do think that the very vast majority of marriage-based green card cases are in good faith, at least the ones that I've had the pleasure of representing. And I think there are a few bad apples who make the process much more difficult and complicated for everyone else. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of today's video. If you are gonna go through the marriage-based green card process yourself, please feel free to reach out. I would love to consult with you and assist you throughout the entire process. My office focuses on family-based immigration and naturalization, so that's right in our wheelhouse, and I would love to speak with you. If you're new to my channel, I try to put out a couple videos each week on family-based immigration, immigration policies, changes that are taking place, and things that you might find interesting. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time for another video.